All right, so this blog is going to be a little controversial. What about coding boot camps in late 2017, 2018? Would you do coding boot camps now? Generally speaking, no. And the reason being is because they're expensive, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for 6 months, whatever it is. And you're going to come out of there with some sort of skills, but you're going to be a junior coder at the end of the day. And you could learn this stuff with a good set of videos. And, as you know, I do sell and produce training courses and so forth. And, for $100, woo, you can get everything that a coding camp will get you, a boot camp, and much more, actually, I would argue. The reason I say that is that a lot of the teachers, as far as I can tell, they're not really, they don't have a few years of coding. They don't have much of a business background, so they can't really give you great career advice because they barely have a career themselves. And, this is a generalization. I don't know everybody's out there, but at the end of the day, you don't need to spend 10, 15, 20 grand on a coding boot camp. You could better off just go to community college if you want to go to a classroom. But again, you can do resources online if you're self-starting. What I've developed with my system, Shameless Self-Promotion, it's kind of like a bridge. It's a virtualized classroom type of environment with the system, the software kind of makes it's in between just watching a bunch of videos and being in a classroom. That's where my system is. And a lot of people could tell you it's actually better than a lot of the classrooms, much better because of the way everything's put together. But, okay, so shameless self-promotion aside, in 2017, 18, I wouldn't go $10,000, $15,000 in debt to go to a coding boot camp. You hear about people who get jobs. I'm sure certain people do, but at the end of the day, you can get jobs if you just self-teach or use systems like mine or others. Because at the end of the day, the certification from the coding boot camps are not worth much, if anything. And they say they can help you get jobs, but if you watch my vlogs, I'll teach you how to get jobs and how to get in there. So what a lot of these coding boot camps will do is they'll partner with local businesses to send their coders there. And if you're any good, they'll send you there on stage, so you work for free. And they'll send you there, which is cool, by the way. When you're first starting out, you got to work for free. So they'll send you there, and they'll keep the best ones, and they'll fire the guys who are no good, or the guys or the girls who are no good, and they'll keep the best women or the best guys at the jobs, and that's it. But guess what? If you went to these same places and say, listen, I've been learning how to code for 6 months, and I've built all these type of things, and I learned, where'd you learn? I learned with Studio Web, I watched YouTube videos. Oh, okay, well, what can you do? Oh, okay, we'll give you a job. And they'll try you out, right? You don't need the coding boot camp to do that. You just go, you look in the Indeed.com or Craigslist or wherever you look in your local area. What is the demand, in terms of jobs? And that's all you have to do, really. The key thing I look for when I'm hiring coders is skills. I want to see what they can do. I want to see their background. And then I will interview. Of course, I'm fortunate that I know a little bit about code, so I can interview. And I'll ask them pertinent questions. And more importantly, I want them to ask me important questions. That tells me what questions they ask, rather, will tell me how good they are at what they do. And of course, then I'll just try them out. Whether they've gone to a coding boot camp or not is absolutely irrelevant to me. So coding boot camps won't get you into huge organizations. I doubt Google and Microsoft and so forth. These guys are looking for people with degrees or very long track records. So with the coding boot camp, we'll get you into startups, perhaps, but you can just walk to any startup and show them your portfolio and you'll get in as well, just as easily. Or in small businesses. Small businesses don't care about resumes. They don't. I remember I used to do tons and tons of work as a freelancer for small businesses. They never cared. I never once did they ask me if I went to a boot camp. Of course, they didn't exist when I was doing my stuff. And or whether or not I had a comp sci degree or a computer engineering degree or anything. They didn't care. They don't care. My emphasis, though, in what I teach is code, technology, and entrepreneurialism to be an entrepreneur, because I haven't worked for anybody since I was 18 years old, and the last job I had was as a bouncer in a nightclub. And I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life effectively, and I've used coding since 1996 as the basis of my businesses. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't totally in the coding business. I was always related to code, but I would write my own apps and so forth, and I would use coding and development, my knowledge of technology in different areas. Some things I've talked about, some things I haven't. So my emphasis in my courses, which is different from anything I've ever seen out there, is you see that the people tell you they're very practical, they're very oriented towards the real-life implementation of these coding, these programming skills, these technology skills. And the reason I think mine are kind of unique in that sense, they got that flavor, that subtlety, is because everybody else is doing this stuff who's jumped into this whole, we're going to teach you how to code. They either barely had any career, they've only worked for other people, they don't have the business background as well, so you get that in there. That's why now that I've completed the Python course, I've covered what I think are the key programming languages. The JavaScript, the PHP, the Python. They represent different work tranches, if you will. Python, server automation, AI, robotics, that kind of stuff. You can do web apps and stuff like that with it, but that's what AI is, the main three I mentioned. If you want to do web app development, WordPress, small business web app and web design, web development, PHP is a king. And of course JavaScript. JavaScript could get you into the startup world, at least that's the foundation that I teach. Could get you, if you wanted to get into that. But JavaScript is just good to know because it's used in web apps and so forth. So with these things, and of course the web tech, HTML5, CSS3, etc. With these things covered, now what I'm doing is I'm pivoting into more of the business/tech end of things. So what I'm starting to work on now with a couple of people who have a successful and growing social media marketing company, we're putting out material on social media marketing, and we're going to get into that. And that will be combined with my many, many years of experience with content marketing. To this day, the Killer Sites network of sites get a couple million page views every month without even trying hard. And this is from work that I put into these sites in the early and mid 2000s. So now that I'm coming back to it, because I'm not just pure tech, I have other business interests, I will be emphasizing more the business end of technology, the marketing end of technology, which includes social media marketing. It also includes content marketing and just pure business, small business development. There is a fad now in startup culture, and startup business is very different from the type of business that I've ever done. And so I'm going to help you to understand those differences and understand the pros and the cons. Startup type businesses are the types of businesses that require huge amounts of money because you require a huge investment just to get the thing off the ground. It's a totally different model, and startups really, they're looking for the acquisition. That's what they're looking to do. They're looking to, within 5 years or so, that you sell the company to a big boy. That's the game plan. And there's a lot of personal implications for the founders involved in the startup. Now you have to understand something about the startup world. You can be the unicorn, the rare person that makes a lot of money working at a startup or creating a startup, but most don't. The vast majority don't. And so what you're going to find in the startup world is you're going to be building something, and there's an 80% chance or so that you end up having worked 5 years or more at subpar rates relative to what you would have made if you just worked for somebody, let alone start up a consulting business or do some things that I would teach. And you got nothing, right? That's just the nature of the game. And that's how they play it. These guys, these VC guys, venture capital, and I'm not blaming them. It's legitimate. They will take a bunch of money that they collect from people who've got a bunch of cash. Money is cheap now because the Federal Reserve has pushed the value of interest rates so low, so everybody's going crazy looking to invest in any whack job type of business if they can, because they're looking for return on their money because they can't make any interest anywhere. It's a problem. And so what they do is they throw their money on 20 different companies, fully expecting that 80% are going to fail. I know I have friends who have a startup, and I've talked to people in startups, and that's the thinking. They say 80% are going to fail. That's okay because they expect that 10% will do 50 times their money. So if that 10% does 10 or 50 times their money, even 20 times the money, it pays for all the other failures, right? But here's the problem: if you're the guy who worked for 40%, 50%, 60% cut in pay for many years, and then you're part of that vast majority, that 80%, which just goes nowhere. Your 5-6 years passes, and what you got nothing. You don't have nothing. You have good experience. It's something to take away, especially when you're young. But you shortchange yourself. That's something called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the cost of the opportunity, and something that you have to factor in when you're jumping into any type of business venture, any type of activity. Just going to school for 4 years, you have to factor in how much you would have made if you would have just went to school for 1 year, got a trade, and I don't know, whatever, and you're making $50K a year, versus the guy who went to school for 4 years, not earning money, in fact spending money. They lost $200,000 in earnings that the other person was earning at that time. That 200 grand that you lost while being in school is called opportunity cost. It's the cost of taking the opportunity to go into school. The same thing applies to startups, to starting a new business. I have to deal with that myself. I've been eating very, very expensive opportunity costs of a certain business. And you just got to factor that in. That is the cost. If you spend 4, 5, 6 years building your business that's not making much, and all that time and effort you put into this business that you're establishing the base for it, you could have spent that time with something where you were making big money, right? And something else that was kind of guaranteed. But why would you do that? Well, you're hoping that this speculative startup business will grow huge, will make up for the fact that you lost years of a full income if you just went another route. In my career as an entrepreneur from 18 years old, I've never gone the speculation route. Maybe I made a mistake not doing that, who knows? I've decided that I was going to play according to the averages, meaning that I was assuming that I looked at where most of the big wealth is made, most people who are wealthy are people who have good little businesses that earn consistent money every year for many years, whether it be 200 grand a year or 500 grand a year or $1 million a year. You never hear about these guys or these girls. You never hear about them because they're not, they only make $500,000 a year. But because in most countries, I would imagine most countries, the taxation rate for a business is far lower than it is for an individual, there's a huge advantage in terms of earning $1 in a business versus earning $1 working for somebody. You get to keep much more of your money. So in Canada, for instance, the corporate taxation rate is 18.5%. That's provincial, which is equivalent to state, and is equivalent to federal. 18.5% combined. So for every $100,000 the company makes profit, it's only taxed $18,500. Whereas if I made $100,000 working for somebody, because of the way the taxation system works here, you're losing like 40, 50% of your money, something like that. I think if you average it out, it'll be like 45%. You tax more than double the rate. So add this up over 5, 10, 15 years, it starts to add up. And of course, you work for somebody, you have this glass ceiling. Chances are you're gonna, you're not gonna be the person making the 200 grand a year unless you're one of the rare ones. So I've always been an advocate of building a small, under the radar business that's highly profitable and builds up over time. Now, You may get a hit. That happens to some of us. Once in a while you get a hit and it just grows really nicely, and then you could sell it, who knows. But keep that in mind. It's a very different approach, when you go for the VC route versus the traditional business route. I'm a traditionalist in that regard. And so there you go. So going forward, you're going to see many more vlogs where I talk about the business end of things. And I'm going to tie it back to coding and software development and so on. So for example, one of the big things I've been talking about for years, I coined it, I think it was 2006. I called it the WordPress web designer. There's a blog I wrote about it. And essentially, I saw how you're going to have people who are going to make a lot of money just specializing in WordPress support and development for people, because so many small companies depend on WordPress. And in fact, there's this huge ecosystem built up around WordPress, like Woo Themes and this theme company and this plugin. And these guys have made a lot of money. I think the Woo Themes, they just sold themselves for like 20 million or something. I forget the exact number. But that tells you something about that market. So when you're looking around hard trying to find a Node.js job for the startup, because Node.js is very specialized, because you think Node is so cool. Meanwhile, you got these WordPress developers who have like 20 or 10 small, medium-sized businesses who depend on them to do the work, and they're making big money, That's something to consider.